lot more youth, and I like the street racing type avenue. With unfortunately, Crenshaw is known as a former cruising. Let's not.
Well, former. Come on now.
We're trying to help you.
Okay.
But so if persons are doing that, and you're like, and they're in the vicinity, and you say, "Hey, stop."
Mm-hmm.
They don't stop.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the moment that you have given a command and I have a right to come for you, grab you, stop you, put my car in front of you? Is this the moment that because you're in the vicinity of illegal activity,
Mm-hmm.
you are subject to encountering force, or using the force of an officer in that encounter?
That it could result in that.
You might say, "Hey, I'm just over here. I was, and just playing devil's advocate."
Yeah, it could. Well, it could be. I'll give you a perfect situation. So there's street racing, and then there are bystanders.
Yeah, and that's what I'm more
Right.
kind of the bystanders.
So you've got a group of bystanders who are present at what we would term an illegal street race.
Yes.
Let's just say that there is a demonstration of speed in the street. You're present. So depending on what your level of activity and involvement is, you may be engaged in illegal activity on either a level of an infraction or a level of a misdemeanor. You may be, because from a distance, we wouldn't necessarily know what your role is immediately if we're observing the activity. If you're the one out there waving the flag and you're starting the race, we're going to bet that you're probably involved. So let's just say that we want to enforce the misdemeanor for being engaged in a street race, as an example. So if we identify you and say, stop, now if I'm limiting your movement, I'm detaining you because I have reasonable suspicion to believe you're engaged in criminal activity. Stop tells you everything you need to know. There is a Los Angeles Municipal Code that says you cannot disobey the lawful order of a police officer. There are a number of different vehicle codes that are involved in street racing that would be enforceable, and there are a number of other laws that may come into play, just depending on what the activity is. If you don't comply with that order to stop, again, under the Penal Code of the state of California, you may be subjected to force in order to allow us to be in the position to make a safe and effective arrest. So that is a possibility. But let's just say you're walking out of the CVS pharmacy with your CVS bag and you're walking by where everyone's gathered, where the street racing is clearly taking place. You round the corner and you're walking away, and you had nothing to do with the street racing even though you were in the area. Okay, the officer may or may not know that you're not engaged in that activity. So this is what I always tell a community member. If an officer tells you to stop, go ahead and stop and get to the bottom of it before you continue on your way.
We had this time, I don't want to go back on topics,
Mm-hmm.
but do you lawfully have to take the order? Because you may say, I don't want to. I have to leave. I'm leaving.
Right. I'm not involved with these people.
That's where I find that, unfortunately, and this is a kind of a good scenario just to give the public of where that's the interaction, there's miscommunication, and we're already starting with some friction.
Sure.
Officer's upset, and then the community's upset, and I already can say the compliance isn't going to probably be up to the officer's standards from the community members. So that's where, but I guess
there'll be a lot of questions.
Clear,
absolutely.
You are legally, the officer is in the right to apprehend you.
They're allowed to do an investigation, but when that point comes where the person is walking out with the CVS pharmacy bag and you've made a determination that, the guy and his daughter were clearly in the CVS shopping, it's time to let them go.
But what if, we'll end it here. If there's no way for you to determine, I guess what I do appreciate about this is you as an officer have the right to stop someone in the vicinity. They need to legally stop, listen to you, or they may be subject to come into contact with an officer to stop them from leaving the vicinity.
Correct, depending on the situation. In this scenario, 99 out of 100 times, that father and daughter are going to walk out of there and they're not going to be stopped. But there could be that instance where, I don't know, maybe he paused to look at the car that was about to race or something.
Because sometimes all the thing could be, scenario if it's a late night and a kid who's going to the store who's, who just happens to be that age demographic.
Right, and matches the description of a broadcast or something like that.
Really just stop, looking over some shoulders, what's going on? But like, hey, I was really just coming to get some milk.
I just came to Ralph's.
Man, But I guess, to the officer's point, hey, you're in the vicinity, you match the description, and I guess that's where those terminologies come in, because if you match the description, you don't know, but an officer, I guess, has the right to say, hey, there's a guy with a black suit and a green shirt who robbed a store with
and in the same area.
Stop, right. And I didn't know that, but that's your right to stop me. Right?
Absolutely. And so the thing there is, and this is where communication becomes such an important part. Communication is key. you need to conduct an investigation if you think that person is involved in that activity. You need to establish whether they're actually in that little bucket where you can say that you've reached the reasonable suspicion standard to detain them. If you fall short of that standard, you have to let them go.
And I do appreciate the clarity. This is why we're digging into this. Because I think a lot of persons just don't understand. But if I could do a quick recap of this portion, it sounds as though, in order to avoid, from a community standard, an officer coming into contact with you physically.
Sure, let's avoid the force altogether. Absolutely.
Listen to the command. I think on a prior occasion we even said if you're not comfortable with that officer, you can ask for a supervisor.
You can always ask for a supervisor.
That can kind
Absolutely.
of de-escalate it so you don't feel like you're alone in that
Sure,
situation.
sure. And females can always ask for a female officer. Absolutely, yes.
So why don't we just kind of change? Another question I have is, why do officers, and then just kind of dig in, this is a question we did have from actually a community member a few weeks back. Why do officers seemingly, on occasions, seem like they shoot to kill rather than try to wound to immobilize suspects?
Yeah. So this is, now we're getting into an area that I've actually, being the first commanding officer of our Force Investigation Division / Force Investigation Group that is African American, I thought I brought a little bit of a keen insight to that. What was really interesting was a big deal was not made about that, which kind of shows you how much progress we've made, if you think about it. So let's talk about that for a moment. So on the Los Angeles Police Department and law enforcement in general, when we're taught to use lethal force, our training directs us to use lethal force in very limited situations, because again, we're talking about an area where we've had 1.8 million contacts, and we've used lethal force probably less than 40 times last year. Okay? Certainly in terms of shootings, we had fewer. We only had 33 instances where we shot.
Something like less than 1%.
Oh no, it's way smaller than that.
Yeah, I was
yeah.
gonna say,
So we're going out 3 digits. Yeah, we're going out. We're talking about of 1.8 million contacts that the Los Angeles Police Department made. 33 were an officer fired a weapon. Yeah. Now we've had other, what we would define as a categorical use of force.
I'm not proud of this statement, but I'm surprised that it wasn't more. And that's the misconception.
Right. That is one of the. So one of the reasons I really was looking forward to this opportunity today is I really want to put perspective to the numbers. And so if you were to ask, and I would love to do a man or woman on the street and go around and ask people, how many people do you think the Los Angeles Police Department shot in the city of Los Angeles last year? It's a tough question. It's tough to walk up to someone like that and ask that question. But I think you would really get a widely varied answer based on social media versus mass media versus what you see, and the numbers would be wildly off. We've actually seen where people come to community meetings and they literally think that we've shot thousands of people in a year, a 1-year time frame. And I'm just here to tell you, we would never be able to catch up if we were shooting thousands of people a year because we can barely keep up with what we're doing now. The investigation is so exhaustive that you would never be able to process all of those investigations.
And when you said out of the 40, is that fatalities or even just wounded?
No, those are total. Those are total officer-involved shootings. Yeah. Now, if we start talking about the specifics in terms of where a Los Angeles police officer utilized force, struck an individual, and they died as a result of the gunfire, not necessarily as a result of the drugs they were using or being hit by a car or something else like that. When we talk about 2018 alone, there were 33 shootings. There were 24 where the officer's bullet actually caused a wound on a suspect. And then there were also 9 where we did not strike a suspect, but we fired rounds. Of those, 12 of those were fatal. So if you go to a location and you tell someone the Los Angeles Police Department made nearly 1.8 million contacts in the community, and you were to ask them how many people did we kill by gunfire, and I was to tell you 12, 1 dozen, most people would laugh you out of the room or say there's no way.